Hi everyone. This will be a short little video, but it's something that I wanted to make in response to LUS's latest video, Karl Jobst, Billionaire Notch, plus $700,000 legal team equals bankruptcy. And the response to the video is a comment that he made about Notch, and this ties into what I've criticized LUS about before in regards to them being relatively tokenized. The difference between LUS and Gen X Gamer, someone else that I've critiqued for also being token, is that LUS is moderate in their tokenism, whereas Gen X Gamer is reactionary. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And in terms of talking about that, I'll also be giving some various evidence in regards to what he says about Notch. Specifically in this video, when LUS is talking about Notch, he says the following.
But the problem was Notch, the billionaire of Minecraft. God bless his heart, seems like a nice dude.
Seems like a nice dude. And he's a billionaire. So LUS acknowledges that Notch is a billionaire, and he says that he seems like a nice dude. Oh, it's so nice of you to pay the cryptofascist legal fees. That would be a problem in and of itself. But he goes on to say that Notch just seems like a nice dude. On top of that, so first off, Karl Jobst is a crypto-fascist. He has neo-Nazi ties, just something we've covered before on this channel. But also, Notch himself is a person who has alt-right beliefs. And these have been documented by other people dating back years. So note the date, 2025, right? Well, the evidence against Notch in terms of coming straight from the horse's mouth date back 6 years, specifically March 28th, 2019, around the same time that Karl's friend, our white goose, was being banned from gaming conventions for being a Nazi. So this knowledge about Notch that I'm going to share with you flies in direct opposition with what LUS is saying about Notch, unless LUS thinks that the point being, LUS thinks that Notch is a nice person, which would mean that they are in agreement insofar as what Notch thinks. And to say that LUS, oh, he didn't do his research, he doesn't want to assume the worst in people. Well, that's a problem when you're dealing with billionaires, and not just billionaires like Notch, but also Donald Trump, where again, he's not critiquing Donald Trump. He's trying to be impartial. He's trying to be objective, but that is obviously a myth, a lie. Lawyers aren't impartial or objective any more than anyone else. If you operate through the legal system and saying that that is somehow neutral, that's just not true, because anyone who's oppressed will tell you that the legal system exists to oppress people and protect and defend the powerful, including just members of the status quo. The legal system exists to defend white cishet men first and foremost, including men like Donald Trump. So LUS is not neutral, but he's treating Notch like he's not only is he not attacking him, he's not even really talking about him in a neutral light. He's talking about him in a positive light. So LUS and his own moderacy extends to Notch, and this evidence about Notch that has again been common knowledge for years, for just as long as the knowledge about Karl Jobst has been knowledge for as many years, from at least 2019 onwards. So, despite having all of this evidence and being able to find it in relation to racist gamers LUS is choosing instead to say something nice about Notch. So people might say, oh, well, he just didn't know. Well, I'm sorry. At this point, I don't buy that with the amount of fascist activity around the globe. And with all of this having come and went, that's just, I don't believe that. Especially a lawyer, someone like LUS, who researches everything that he does, supposedly to protect himself. I don't believe that for a second. So let's just keep that in mind, okay? Now, the evidence itself is as follows. All splashes referring to the original creator of Minecraft Notch have been removed from the game in the latest snapshot. And this is from r/Minecraft, March 27th, 2019. For anyone curious about the drama revolving him on Twitter, he pretty much came out to be very alt-right and has very, very strong beliefs. Politics are a touchy and controversial subject, so it's usually not the best idea to share those on the internet. However, he is pretty rich now and no longer holds Minecraft in his hands, so I guess he can sort of do whatever he wants. Also, he completely sold off the rights to Minecraft, so Mojang really doesn't have to keep his name in there. To each their own. And people are talking about how, oh, politics are a touchy subject. Someone else says, I disagree. Touchy and controversial subjects ought to be shared and discussed openly. Someone else replies, right, but when you're a very famous figure that millions of kids look up to, and you're pretty much the figure of Minecraft alone, you may want to lay low on your political beliefs. So bear in mind, Notch is someone who originally created Minecraft, and even individuals like LUS have referred to him as the creator of Minecraft. It's just common knowledge. So, as far as that goes, people look up to him, including millions of children, and Notch chooses to be, to this day, very open about his political beliefs. And these screen caps actually go back to the same date, effectively. A day after this was originally posted, some people were like, hey, if you're out of the loop, here's some of Notch's worst tweets. Excuse me. Some of Notch's worst tweets as of 2019. So these would have been out there for people to see 6 years ago. And here are, I open them, and this is what they say. This is him saying, oh, I've been silenced. And someone saying, be careful of what you say or they will silence you. The triple parentheses thing, it's like a 4chan cryptofascist dog whistle, where if you put like they, triple parentheses, the triple parentheses refer to Jewish conspiracy. So anytime you put something in triple parentheses, it's a dog whistle referring to that. So they is alluding to, cultural Marxists, the Jewish octopus, that kind of thing. The next tweet doesn't seem to exist anymore, but this one does, where Notch says Nazis and communists are bad. So he's the white liberal, except the problem is that liberals are in cahoots with Nazis. So if he says Nazis and communists are bad, in reality he's attacking communists because Nazis and liberals have the same basic belief system. They're both defending the West, whereas communists, like true revolutionaries, are actually trying to change the status quo, whereas Nazis and liberals are not. But he's comparing Nazis to communists in an ostensibly open condemnation of both to cloud the issue. True Gamer owns the libtards. Notch says International Women's Day. Sarcastically, he says you're an inspiration and a cook. So basically saying, stay in the kitchen, women. Not talking about body dysmorphia in regards to what I would assume is some holiday. but making it illegal to use the wrong pronouns. They're the ones using the wrong pronouns. And you have him, just as far as all of that goes, being bigoted towards various people who don't use cishet pronouns. So again, these are all things that Notch himself said over 5 years ago. Notch, someone asks in response, why did you change from a happy, positive man who just enjoyed life to someone being angry and mad at other people for existing and wanting to be respected for their beliefs? That saddens me. You don't need to agree with them, but basic respect for everyone is not that hard. And Notch is like, I've tried for many years. I respect whatever people want to do. That's not true. I do not respect telling others what to do. So there's negative freedom, the freedom from restrictions, and that's a very common corporate tactic. We don't want to be told what to do, especially when you're the exception. Except, he's talking about white straight men, but he's going to frame himself as like a truth seeker. Someone else replies, the funniest thing about this is I know you read all these comments because sometimes you show up and get salty in the replies. Nothing better to do, huh? $1 billion and you're not saving kids in Africa, paying off GoFundMes, flying jets, or just posting. And Notch says, I'm not stopping. Also, I own a jet and fly all the time, so once again, you don't even want to know me. Just want to hate. So he's like, yeah, I have a jet and I fly around. I'm not about helping other people with my money, but I do have a jet. So, he's a dick at the very least, but, he's a dick who is sexist and equates Nazis and communists, which is a white liberal tactic, and is someone who is responding unironically to people who use Nazi dog whistles. So these are definitely things that Notch has said, and people are pointing out in the comments there are some things that we could say about like Stalin and Mao and killing millions upon millions of people, and but it's a very different thing to critique individuals within specific movements versus, especially state leaders, versus people more broadly, because I'm an anarcho-communist, for instance, and I'm going to get comparisons between me and Stalin or me and Mao don't really make any sense. But Notch is the kind of person who would do that. But these are just older examples of Notch being bigoted. His views haven't changed, and we can assume they haven't changed because he's someone who keeps the same company. Karl Jobst was a bigoted person back in 2019, and Notch is someone who paid his legal fees and who is keeping mum about Karl in regards to everything that's going on. Like, he paid for his friend's legal fees and is defending him by effectively staying silent. He's staying quiet for Karl, someone that I've talked about in the past as being racist, and not just me, but also LUS. So LUS is like, oh, hey, Notch, you seem like a nice person, but you paid Karl's legal fees, someone that LUS themselves have gone out and said is a racist person. This is what, in a past video where I discuss the relative tokenism and tone policing of LUS regarding Karl Jobst, LUS calls Karl racist. So that's what we're going to be talking about. First up, here's LUS saying in a past video that he thinks Karl Jobst is racist.
I found some other stuff that is very disturbing on the Discord channel that Karl has posted about, and again, it's a long time ago, and it's a little racist if I had to be honest with you, and I didn't take Karl to be that type of individual. But again, the more I learn, let me repeat this again. I'm getting really upset right now about Karl because I used to be a huge fan of his. If you watch the completionist arc I did, I was 100% on Karl and Mudahar's side. Then the more you learn about Karl, and people will say, oh, it's because he lost. Yeah, it is because he lost. If he won, none of this would have mattered.
Okay, so that is LUS in a past video only 11 days ago on April 29th, 2025. So a month after the lawsuit came and went, LUS is acknowledging that Karl Jobst is racist. His behaviors are racist, which makes Karl racist. And here's a follow-up video released 1 hour ago today on May 10th, 2025, titled Karl Jobst the Completionist just filed a lawsuit against me, clickbait. And in this video, LUS essentially has a follow-up comment in regards to Karl's racist behavior. So this is what they said.
Strictly African Americans. That being said, it is hilarious, right, that they are giving me more views, that they are doing great.
Oops.
A Karl stand in my, because there's no reason, it's all ad hominem attacks, which is interesting because his wife is Asian. So you would think that Karl's own subscribe, maybe this is a shout out to Karl's dark history of allegations and discord. Again, if you want to, I'm not going to post the stuff here because I find the word distasteful, but Karl has been alleged by Reddit and other individuals for being a, let's say, not very friendly to minority groups, specifically African Americans.
Okay, so yeah, in those two videos, you have two competing voices coming from LUS where LUS, a Asian American gender nonconforming person, their pronouns are they them, they call Karl racist because his actions are racist, and if your actions are racist, that makes you a little bit racist, right? And then in the follow-up video, LUS calls Karl racist again, then polices himself and refuses to investigate Karl's racism. Instead, he frames it a particular way. And I even write about that. Another point to consider with LUS and people like them who defend Karl Jobst is displacement. They keep referring to Karl's racist behavior as his dark past, denying his present racism despite knowing that Karl is being racist right now on his Discord server, something else that I've proved. Even so, I want to stress that while LUS's tokenism is less overt than Gen X gamers, LUS still defends Karl to a lesser extent by refusing to investigate Karl's racism. So that extends to the people who are defending Karl besides LUS. So LUS is like, oh, well, there's evidence that Karl's being racist on his Discord server, and I'll show some screen caps from his Discord server, but not the racist stuff. And I won't even call it racist half the time. I'll call him being rude. So he's tone policing himself when talking about Karl, but also people who defend Karl like Notch. And as I said before, if we go to the server, another image from the Discord server that LUS is talking about, here's one where Karl Jobst is doing the Nazi salute by using the My Heart Goes Out to You image by Elon Musk, who's another billionaire like Notch, who happens to be a Nazi, another billionaire with alt-right beliefs. And if we take that and apply it to LUS refusing to critique Donald Trump, he's also refusing to critique Elon Musk. He's refusing to go after Karl Jobst for being bigoted, but he's also refusing to go after Notch. And point in fact, at the start of this video, I quote LUS, or I just play the footage himself. If we go back a little bit and we watch this again.
Karl thinks that the more money you have, it means the better lawyer you have. Compare this to Billy Mitchell, where we know that his son works for the law firm almost at no cost. I think it was like $1, and then it was like pro bono or something like that. That's what you want to be doing. Anytime you can save money, you should be saving money. But the problem was Notch, the billionaire of Minecraft. God bless his heart, seems like a nice dude.
Seems like a nice dude. And again, so this is an instance where LUS is defending someone who seems like a nice guy, despite the fact that he's alt-right and he is a billionaire with carte blanche who defends Karl Jobst, someone that LUS himself has acknowledged as being racist, and someone who isn't just racist towards African Americans, but also Asian people as well. So LUS knows that Karl Jobst is racist, but he also knows that Notch, the person defending him, has alt-right views. And how could he not, right? He claims to look into everyone that he is investigating, right? Despite the fact that he made a mistake with Gerard the Completionist, who he at least apologized to in regards to how some ordinary gamers and other individuals who are looking into him, Karl Jobst in particular, basically we're doing things that LUS has sort of doubled back on, right? And so they talk about the neutrality of the law, but the law is not infallible. But people like this hide behind the law as lawyers, and they act impartial and they act neutral, but they're making statements all the time that contradict themselves, including defending someone who defends a person who is racist. And LUS will defend Karl Jobst by refusing to one, call him racist, but also to describing his present behaviors as dark past action, when I can prove that they're not, and I have repeatedly, and LUS has refused to talk about that. So yeah, this is just further evidence that LUS is someone who, despite the fact that you have Notch, who is, again, responding to people who use Nazi dog whistles in a collaboratory voice, or him equating Nazis and communists. When he's going after communists, he's not talking about Stalin or Mao, he's talking about people like me. You know, communism includes anarcho-communism, for instance, which Marxist-Leninists were not. He is a sexist toward women. He is bigoted towards people who are like me, and he calls it body dysphoria. And he's someone who flaunts his wealth in front of people while attacking others for using the wrong pronouns. Like, these are all dog whistles. And furthermore, he defends someone who uses the Nazi salute because they share similar political beliefs. And, you know, people, even when critiquing Notch, this individual says, or Trisbit, talking about Karl Jobst, says, politics are a touchy and controversial subject, and people are hesitating to get political while discussing the politics of someone and debating whether or not Nazis are good or bad, so on and so forth. You know, it's like, it's the same tactic that LUS does, where they're like, I don't want to talk about politics, but to defend Karl Jobst by proxy, you know, to defend Notch is to defend Karl Jobst. And because they stand for the same things, they stand for the owner class to own everything and use conservative ideologies that attack people such as myself, but also people such as yourself, LUS. But white moderates will ignore that so long as they feel safe to do so. And that's what LUS is doing. So he's continuing to be a token white moderate. So when I say token, a token person who is acting like a white moderate, a token moderate. The enemy of progress in regards to racism in the United States is the white moderate, said Martin Luther King in 1963, a letter from Birmingham jail. But moderacy extends obviously to token instances following that, and not just people of color, but also Asian people. So LUS is continuing to ignore evidence like Karl Jobst doing the Nazi salute, and Notch, someone who seems like a nice guy, paying his legal defenses, and then LUS going to bat for both of them by defending Notch, ergo defending Karl Jobst, which makes LUS racist. If you defend a Nazi, you're bigoted yourself because you're defending someone who's bigoted. He's literally playing devil's advocate. And LUS should know better because they're a lawyer, but they're also someone who talks impartially about Donald Trump, for instance. Has Donald Trump done a good job so far? If you voted for Donald Trump, are you happy with his performance currently? Stocks are up, inflation is low, no trade war with China, talks with Putin. Like, again, like Donald Trump is responsible for a lot of bad things. LUS isn't mentioning any of this. LUS is token. LUS is racist because they're defending Karl Jobst and people like them, such as Notch. Like, and you also have to keep in mind that LUS was a Karl Jobst fanboy, and to an extent they still are because they're still defending Karl. And they do it by also defending billionaires like Donald Trump and Notch, who have alt-right beliefs. And yeah, so I don't really know how else to say this, but it's like, LUS, stop being a token Asian person. It's not good. It's not going to defend you, who are not only an Asian American, but you're also gender nonconforming. And Donald Trump is someone who is attacking both sides of the aisle. Kung flu, remember that one? Like, so Sinophobia is something that Donald Trump leaned into. You're not talking about that. And again, if he says, oh, what? If they say that, oh, well, I'm a lawyer, I can't talk about anything, then what's the point? What's the point of that? You don't want to do activism, but you're in a general conversational sense willing to defend Karl Jobst and billionaires, but you're not willing to go to bat for the oppressed that those individuals attack. Then you've chosen a side, and you've chosen the wrong side of history. Those who defend the elite, those who defend the state. You are a race traitor. You're a white moderate, or you're a token moderate who's acting white, like you've assimilated, just like Gen X has, but you've done it through a moderate approach versus a reactionary approach. All right, so yeah, that's all I wanted to say for this video. Relatively short compared to some of my other videos, still a little bit long, but I wanted to try and explain things. It requires a little bit more nuance and explanation in regards to moderates because they're not openly antagonistic towards minorities, including themselves. They dress it up in such a way that, they come to you with smiles and they, reach across the aisle and they shake hands with the enemy. But that doesn't change the fact that, this is effectively, LUS is the fox of the wolves and foxes argument by Malcolm X. They are polite, but then they defend the very people who lead to genocide, with Notch, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Karl Jobst is a part of that group, someone who is for maintaining the status quo, which leads to all of these systemic issues. So LUS is absolutely complicit in that at this point. And I'm not going to talk nice about them any longer. It's like we have to call this out for what it is, and it's just token bigotry. And that bigotry isn't just racism. Defending racist people is racism, LUS, but it's also you're also a traitor to social justice in regards to gender nonconforming people. You're gender nonconforming yourself, and from a trans woman to a non-binary person, what are you doing? Stop doing it, you idiot. But yeah, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. I'm just going to keep making content like this because I'm investigating bigotry in the gaming community, which LUS is a part of and guilty of doing. So stay tuned in the future, and until next time, stay safe out there.